Hello everybody and welcome to Heart and Hand Extra. My name's David Edgar, I'm your host, and this is of course our preview show where we look back at what's happened since our last show on Monday, but more importantly look forward to the weekend's match when this week on we take on Hearts at Ibrox. And joining me for this is a long-time pod stalwart but making his first appearance for a few months, a bit like Jordan Rossiter, and that's a comparison you won't hear that often. It's Mark Dingwall.
And how are you, David?
I am delighted to have you back. Our listeners have missed your dulcet tones, Mark.
I'm off the bench.
You're off the bench, and we haven't done an awful lot about East European hitchhikers over the last year, and I think our older listeners are starting to miss that sort of thing on this
my taste become more refined as the years pass, David.
Yeah, well, Brexit's going to have unintended effects on that sort of thing, isn't it?
Well, we'll have to invest in a few new, different passports.
Okay then, mate. The main thing then that I think that's happened this week has been the continued speculation about Alfredo Morelos, and we've heard all manner of different rumours that there's still interest in him from China, that they've came back with further bids. Rangers have again rejected them, and the latest seems to be that Rangers are talking to Morelos' agent about an improved deal. No guarantee that it's going to be signed or anything, but talks are underway. As you'd probably expect for a guy who's done as well as him and his value has rocketed, that his agent's after an improved deal. But Morelos has, in fact, today said he's aware that a lot of clubs are looking at him and he's just going to concentrate on scoring goals, trying to get into the Colombia squad for the World Cup. Realistically, he's not long for Ibrox, is he, one way or the other?
No, I don't think he is. And just to be honest, the way he's come in, the way he's behaved, the way he's scored, then I don't think we can really have any regrets if he does go for a reasonable price. You know, where Rangers are and where we have been, if you get a bid coming in, you know, over 5, 6, 7 million, it's almost like, you know, pull a figure out there. But if they're coming in that range, then that makes a huge difference to the club's finances. It means you're going to have to promote somebody up front. But if there is interest at those kind of prices, then it's simply a no-brainer that he will go.
I think that's something that we do need to bear in mind, that while you're obviously sad if ever you lose a player, if we're getting 10 million plus for anybody at the moment, it's kind of like a lottery win, because nobody started the season that value, and that kind of money, in terms of what it can do for the club, not just in terms of transfers, but also, I mean, you've campaigned long and hard about the state of Ibrox, and the club are addressing it, but it's not something that gets fixed overnight.
No, I mean, the problem with Ibrox started long before we had the Spurs in, was, you know, under David Murray and Martin Bain, you know, the programmes for maintenance and cleaning were cut right back. And so, you know, we're paying, you know, that short-term, or supposedly short-term solution back then is now coming back to haunt us many years later. And, you know, how many players have we seen over the years where you thought they had potential, or they did have potential, they were doing well, and all it takes is one injury or a loss of form, and suddenly, you know, somebody that's a hero becomes a villain. And I'm a great romantic when it comes to football, but you simply can't take chances when these kinds of opportunities come up when we are where we are. So if the money's right, then he's going to go. Same as, you know, there is no player in that squad that you know, should not be sold if we get a well above odds offer for them.
Speaking of the financial side of the club, Mark, now this week the newspapers reported that Chase Brothers, who are an international bank, had taken security over Edmondson House in the Albion car park against a £3 million overdraft which had been offered to Rangers. Now, that's not a panic measure, and it's not a bad thing, it's not SPIV related. That is just a pretty standard financial transaction for anybody when taking out an overdraft with a bank, that you have to provide some security. And in fact, my contention is, and we spoke to Andy McGowan on here about this, that this financial ability now, the fact that Rangers can get credit, to put it in very simple terms, after years of not being able to, for fairly obvious reasons, given what happened when we went down to the lower divisions, then it's almost a sign of confidence from a firm, and the security issue is just pretty standard.
Well, it's how a lot of businesses finance themselves, is that you have to have, if you've got resources, especially land or buildings, then they become security on loans or overdrafts. So I wouldn't get into a panic. I also think it's maybe a wee reality check for some of us that have been involved in the fan movement in the past, where, if you remember, David Murray very kindly offered the trust to join a new company that would own Ibrox. Well, can you imagine if Ibrox had actually been hived off to a separate company controlled by the bank?
Oh God.
Where would we be now? We'd be paying 4 or 5 million quid a year in rent. We wouldn't own the land and the building, and so we wouldn't be able to provide normal financial arrangements for the club, because the stadium would no longer be ours. And again, for the club as a club, I know a lot of people are taking with the idea that fans should maybe chip in and buy the pitch, and that means Rangers could never leave. That's true, but it also means that you're going to have severe problems maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line, when you decide we're going to really renovate Ibrox, we're going to change things, and we need to secure some borrowings on the land. Well, it's not impossible to get out of this. Chelsea fans supposedly on the pitch at Stamford Bridge, but basically they eventually had to cave in, simply because the practicality of the club means that they went along with the club's plans. But it does cause a major headache. So I think we should always be romantics. We should always be looking for the safety of the club, but shouldn't rush into things simply because it seems like a good idea at the time. We'll own the pitch. Well, if the club doesn't own the pitch, then it could cause real problems for the club in the future.
As a wee aside, Mark, this is nothing directly to do with Rangers, but there's obviously been a lot of speculation over the last few months about the future of Hampden, and of course the Scottish Rugby Union or Association. They made a fantastic and I believe very cost-effective pitch, pardon the pun, to the SFA about getting Scotland matches and cup semis and finals played at Murrayfield. And in fact, that's the option the SFA will pursue if they don't get the ability to buy the pitch to buy the stadium, from Queen's Park. Apparently, the view of the SFA is that Queen's Park basically couldn't afford the upkeep if there was no major games being played at it. So they've sort of got them over a barrel. What's your thought on the whole issue of should it be played at Hampden, should they be moving to Murrayfield, and the SFA's move to take control of Hampden as their preferred option?
I think the SFA should control Hampden. Without getting too complicated, it's essentially Queen's Park, the amateur club that owns the ground at the moment, and so the amount of money that the country, the game, has invested in Hampden, I think it would be completely ludicrous to scrap Hampden or to move away. I think it's got 20, 30 years in it anyway before you need to make that decision, either to revamp it or to move elsewhere. I don't think as a country we can afford to. But more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, is that Hampden, let's separate Hampden from the football authorities, for which Rangers fans have got not a little love. Let's remove that. And what I would say is Hampden is a symbol of the whole of Scottish football, style of football that's played across the world, the history of football across the world. Scotland's one of, you can argue between Scotland and England whether they are the originators and inventors of football, but certainly we've played a huge part in the history of football across the world. And I think in terms of what has happened at Hampden, the great games that have been played there, the history that's been made, then it is something that other countries would give their eye teeth for. I'm very proud as a Glaswegian that this city has contained 3 huge football venues over the years. That so many world, European, British records have been had at Hampden. So from a romantic point of view, I think Hampden should be kept. should also remain the home of Scottish football. And rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, is if you don't like the SFA, reform it, campaign, argue. I know that's not an easy thing to do, but things that are worthwhile in life never are that easy. So rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I would say we retain Hampden. And there's also whatever deal we sign with the SRU, are they going to be able to keep it? If we sign a deal that we'll take the big games to Ibrox and Parkhead, well, you know what? I have a funny feeling how that's going to end.
Well, that's been ruled out. I will say that I think even the SFA realised that. But while we're on the subject of the SFA, just before we get into Saturday's match, a lot of talk at the moment, obviously, about their new chief executive. Leanne Dempster of Hibs has ruled herself out. One of the names mentioned, for reasons that are beyond my understanding, is Jackie McNamara. This would appear for Scottish football and for Rangers, Mark, to be a fairly pivotal appointment. Are we going to get somebody who's got a plan and a forward-thinking and the ability, a forward-thinking ideology and the ability to implement it, which is obviously key because you're going to run into a lot of problems at Hampden? Or are we going to get the same old, another guy who comes in who's a puppet of the people who have the power, and business will continue as usual?
Look, I think there comes a time in many organisations where change happens. It's not necessarily, and it isn't very often, cataclysmic. But I think if you saw the way that Alec McLeish was introduced, and without being unpleasant to the gentleman who introduced him,
yes, Jesus,
the gentleman was getting on in years, and it did seem a little bit Heath Robinson. I like Big Eck on a personal basis, and you can argue about some of these career results down south in a very competitive environment. But what you saw there was, and I support his appointment simply on it solves the problem for a little while. Now, it buys them time to make those changes. If you look, people were talking about the SFA were outbid the Irish Football Association for the services of Michael O'Neill. Well, if you actually look at the turnover of the two businesses, the SFA is between 3 and 4 times bigger than the Irish Association in a normal year. Not that we or Northern Ireland ever get to major competition finals that often anyway. So money shouldn't be a problem if they want to attract somebody from business who has a track record with, say, for instance, the Disney Corporation or Nike or Adidas or whatever realm of sports administration. So it shouldn't be a problem. My worry is that, because for whatever reason Leanne Dempster's got a bit of a name, a bit of a cachet about her just now, but look at where she's actually been. Again, no disrespect to her because she's been running two professional football clubs, but is it really going to make that much of a difference to Scotland and the more inherent problems that we have in Scotland with the culture, with the weather, with the changing powers in football? Somebody who's really going to make a difference to that has got to be somebody with real foresight and force of personality to impose not just one plan but several plans across Scotland and over the lifetime of his own and probably the next couple of chief executives' tenures. Because how many times in our lifetimes have we had plan this, plan that? Nothing ever happens.
No. How many think tanks have we lived through? Yeah. Honestly, we've had more think tanks than Scotland managers in my lifetime, I think. So what you're basically saying, Mark, is that we should look to hire some business experience from major sports firms as opposed to maybe Jackie McNamara, because when York City stuck him on garden leave once, they gave him the title chief exec.
And it's also where have York City been operating? How long in his time have they been in the Football League?
Oh, he was a disaster. Jackie McNamara, everything he's touched since he got his kitchen done after his clever transfer negotiations at the United, it's been all downhill from there. But let's move on to the Rangers. That's why we're here after all, to talk. Now, first things first, injury news, as we reported on the Patreon site. Lee Wallace, Bruno Alves back in the squad and back available for Saturday. apart from that, we've got pretty much our full strength, apart from long-term injuries, obviously, guys like Ryan Jack, Graham Dorrans, Jordan Rossiter, Ross McCrory, sadly, who looks as though he's going to be out for at least another month and possibly even may need an op. Would you be looking at making many changes after last week, Mark? Because while I thought we were wonderful at times going forward, you couldn't really say that defensively we had a sound game, and we're stepping up a level in terms of opposition and what they can do going forward.
Well, I actually had the misfortune to watch most of the Ross County Hearts game last week. And
well done. Did you stick it out to the end?
I had a brief lunch break in the middle to be. I don't think I really missed anything. But again, depends what Hearts team turns up.
Aye, it does.
You thought early on, they get the goal with the late lamented big laughs, and you thought they would go on from there, but they didn't. They stagnated, and I thought Ross County fairly well contained them for most of the game, and then they're obviously to make a few chances themselves. Although statistically, I'm sure some sad kids out there will blow me away with this, but I thought that in terms of clear-cut chances, Hearts were well in front. So that is obviously a danger that we have to look out for, especially if Lafferty and Naismith are available for them.
Well, still some talk about whether Naismith will be fit. I think he'll be guaranteed an interesting reception. I thought Lafferty got a pretty decent reception at Ibrox earlier this season. Admittedly, he wasn't doing as much damage as Hearts somehow managed to play a 14-10-0 formation, and he was at left back for most of the match. But I have my doubts that Naismith will be getting a warm reception, Mark. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, there are defenders of him who say, the club should have talked to him more, should have talked to all the players that left more, should have explained that somebody, McCoy should have taken more of a role in it, or some Byzantine thought by Charles Green. My view is quite simple for the guys that left. You could have stayed, and you could have got, if you were going to move on in your career, you've either got the money from Rangers, or you're in a position where the club benefits from a fee. So you chose to go for your own benefit. So if anybody wants to abuse them, fine. My attitude is, with the way that a lot of players have behaved over the years, is they're simply the hired help. Enjoy them when they're there. It's a few characters, but there'll always be somebody tomorrow. So, they're small beer, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm the same. I remember back to our wee friend the Gub one time when Rangers were playing Falkirk.
Does he actually like anybody? That's the major problem, though, if you're going to use an anecdote from him.
Well, after we were playing Falkirk at Ibrox, and Falkirk took the lead, and then Rangers scored and took the lead, and a few bears in front of us started throwing the Vickies to Falkirk fans and shouting, "Get it up, you!" And the wee man turned into me and went, "I refuse to taunt Falkirk fans. We are above that." It's always stuck with me. It's like, yeah, you've got a point. We're Rangers.
Did he direct his butler to go and give him the
he sent the barman to go and do it. He was instructed to go off and get tore into them. Now,
coming back to what you were saying, I mean, there is something about Rangers where I'm still stuck in this mindset where we need about 3 goals to win a match before I feel comfortable.
Well, it's kind of true usually.
So there is this mad vulnerability. I mean, and I don't even include Hamilton because, I mean, although I don't think it's an excuse, there is definitely something about that carpet. I mean, it looks like a shag pile carpet that you play on at New Douglas Park. There's definitely something there that no matter how often you tell players or what club it is, that gives them an on-field advantage. So maybe that result, losing those goals is a wee bit away from the normal. But there is a vulnerability with Rangers where we just can't seem to just get that killer. And then, I don't know, do we go to sleep or are the players not up to the job? But there is this vulnerability with Rangers in almost every game where it just seems people can walk straight through us. Every game there's going to be chances, but there's just something about us that, do we need a leader, a real leader, to marshal things at the back?
Well, I thought that was what Martin was signed for, and it's very early, and but we were told an awful lot about his leadership characteristics, and maybe it's just settling in, and maybe he just doesn't feel quite ready to do that, but we haven't seen that from him yet. But you could say the same about Alves, another guy who we thought would offer that, and maybe it's just we've been a bit spoiled, Mark, that we've grown up with guys like Butcher, Goff, Bomber, Amo even, these big presences from the back, the guys who sort of set the tone, and maybe these guys just don't really exist in the modern game.
Well, and it's also maybe, absence makes the heart go fonder. I thought with Alves, having seen him so often in the past, that, he would probably need a bit of time to come up to speed with, the kind of, he might not be the most skillful, but there is something in terms of the speed. And compared with England, it's a more physical game up here. I know that people say referees mollycoddle the players, and so I always thought that Big Alves was going to take a wee while to settle in, and now they've got injuries and so forth. But the times when he has played, he's always looked that yard off the pace.
Well, speaking of referees, beautifully said there, Mark. Our old friend John Beaton is the referee for Saturday's match. Now, Beaton's charge sheet at Ibrox this season is long and lengthy, and I think it's well, like all football fans, we moan about refs. I think it's been pretty apparent several times this season that Rangers are ref to a different standard, and Beaton has really been among the chief suspects in that. My personal opinion is this is far too important and far too high profile a game for this guy to be reffing, and I don't think that he is emotionally capable of being a top grade referee, because I think he gets influenced by the crowd, by the noise, by the players, and I think that he then stops making decisions based on just naturally making decisions, and he starts second guessing everything he does, and he starts, you can see the decision making process is flawed. He's going to have a tough time of it on Saturday, in which historically is a physical game. Rangers and Hearts throughout my lifetime have always been two teams who just go at it hammer and tongs, and I don't see Saturday being any different. I think a lot of fans, and I'm one of them, are worried that we're going to be coming out of this game on Saturday not talking about the players, not talking about the manager, but talking about the referee, and that's a terrible feeling to have going into a football match.
Well, I think if somebody had kind of had blinked during your little rant there, they would have thought, which particular referee is he talking about? So Willie Collum, for instance. I've got this theory that because if you look back in some early editions of the fanzine, I found references to that Colonel O'Shaughnessy, who was one of Celtic's directors, was talking about referees never giving Celtic anything in like the 1890s. And I've got this theory that because Celtic's paranoia is all persuasive, that it does have a cumulative effect on referees, and as a corollary of that, it means that there's an ingrained, even when Celtic aren't playing Rangers, whenever Rangers are playing, referees are going out there going, I'm going to be under such scrutiny because this is Rangers. They'll all think I'm a Mason if I give Rangers the benefit of the doubt, so I've got to be tougher on Rangers than I will be in any other team. Now, whether that's genuine in the front of the mind or psychologically in the background, I think it's definitely a fact that, I've always assumed as a Rangers fan, any game we go into, we have got to play better and harder than anybody else, because the referees will not give us anything. Simply because Celtic have poisoned the well doesn't mean we should throw the baby out with bathwater, but we are under stricter conditions than everybody else. I would also say, in my lifetime, I don't think that the referees have been fitter or better trained or subjected to so much scrutiny. So we keep looking back to this golden age of Tiny Wharton. Well, Tiny Wharton and Andrew Waddle and Hope and all these guys, they were hated in their day by Rangers fans and every other fan in Scotland as well. So, the referee's there. Let's just go on with the game.
Well, I would say in Beaton's case that Hearts fans were talking about incidents that they had with him, and they can't stand him. And I am willing to go by that he's just a bad referee, which is what I think is the case. But it does concern me that we're going into the match thinking, oh Christ, and that's never a good sign before a match kicks off. Now, an interesting, I think, we addendum to this season has been Craig Levein on his No Fucks Left to Give tour, because I think he's at the stage of life, as we all reach, Mark, where he just doesn't care anymore. He knows that this is certainly his biggest last job in football, and he knows that he can do what he like, and I think he's just amusing himself. And of course he's reeled in on fishing trips so far this season Brendan Rodgers and Neil Lennon, and he's been kind of quite quiet so far, but that of course may change either in the build-up or the post-match to it. But I admit, after not being a fan of his throughout his career, I have laughed this season, and I've been a wee bit surprised that we laugh and joke about the oversensitivity of certain sections of Scottish football, but I've been very surprised at how easily he was able to land them, and that nobody was able to say to these guys, look, your reaction is exactly what he wants. And further, I would hope that Rangers, that if anything happens, Graham Murray just goes, aye, that's just Craig being Craig, and leaves it, because it's kind of bizarre to me that grown men have responded the way they have to what are quite clearly wind-ups.
It's all the fun of the fair, isn't it? You know, he's been around long enough. I don't think his delivery's great. I mean, he does, rose glasses and that beard. Let's face facts, he does look like a fugitive from Crime Watch. But he does, as you say, he does seem to reel them in. As a tactic, long term, I'm not really sure that it works that well. But in terms of Lennon, for instance, you clearly got right under Lennon's skin.
For weeks.
So, it's almost like a Fergie and Kevin Keegan moment. So, it's all part of the game. So if he wants to try it, fine. But I think Rangers should be responding to it with, as you say, shrug of the shoulders. What did you expect? Seen the routine before. Next please, let's get somebody that can do it properly and we'll worry about it.
Nah, exactly. Just let it go. Don't be annoyed by it. And fair play to him, because he's right. He's not going. He's had his turn at Scotland, and he's not going to go down south. This is the biggest job he's going to have. And even if he lost it, I think he'd probably just go back to being their technical director again. So might as well have a bit of fun with it. But he's doing quite well with them. They are a better side. As you pointed out, I've seen them against Hibs and Ross County recently, and they were terrible football matches, but he's been getting them results. What's your prediction for Saturday, Mark? Because our home form is fucking awful, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm the eternal optimist, so I'm going to go for 2-1. I just think there's, I think that we're so leaky that we could possibly leak a goal, but on the other hand, when we start motoring up front, even against teams that are traditionally in the kind of top half of the Scottish League, then I'm confident that we can score. So 2-1 would be my bet.
I'm going to echo Mark's bet, so if you're putting a coupon on, you know which one to avoid. But I agree, I think that Hearts are good defensively, but I think that we're showing a lot of signs of having that bit of creativity we've badly missed this season, and I can see us getting there by the odd goal in 3, so I'll go for 2-1 as well. I share Mark's concerns. I think Hearts have got a good forward line, and I think that overall it all comes down to the midfield battle as always at Ibrox. If we win that, we'll be able to go in and control the game, but I'm going for 2-1. Now, Mark, Heart and Hand was built on stories that maybe always didn't have something to do with football, and were, shall we say, somewhat lewd.
Yes.
Well, I can't let you go as an original member, as someone who's on the Heart and Hand Mount Rushmore and enjoys a tale from the, shall we say, the darker side of the football industry. Ross County, nice Highland club, always thought of as a bit of a family club, I think it's fair to say.
Hotbed of Presbyterianism?
Well, this week Ross County were forced to issue a statement after it was revealed that one of their players, ex-Celtic player Michael Gardine, had been caught on camera performing a sex act in the club's changing room upon himself, and that he'd done so in front of his teammates, one of whom had filmed it. Why do people let that happen? Look, if anyone films you doing something like that, it's so they can send it to people, right? It's not for their own collection. And even if it was, why would you go, oh, right, you're the only one that's going to look at it. That's fine, hang on, I'll just get my cock out. But former Celtic player Michael Gardine performed a sex act on himself, which I, when reading the story, had taken to mean he had engaged in a bout of self-abuse. That's what you would think, right?
Allegedly.
Perform a sex act on yourself. You're thinking wank, right? That's what's at the top of your list. But apparently it wasn't. Apparently, Mark, he indulged in what can only be described as a bout of autofellatio. What is happening in the Highlands, mate?
He wouldn't be the first player to blow his own trumpet. I think we should also at this point probably point out this is probably why Heart and Hand is a podcast and not a video cast, because I dread to think that some of the sites that the subscribers would have seen if we'd left you in charge of a video camera for any length of time.
But what kind of conversation leads into that? Hey lads, do you know what I can do? No, I can suck my own bell end away. No, I can't. Hold on, get your cameras ready. That doesn't happen in your average workplace for good reason.
Well, look, let's face fact. He's not the first man to indulge in a team wank.
Well, it isn't a self. I mean, it is a self high five, but I know I wouldn't want to do it because I know where my willy's been, and the last place I want to put it now would be my mouth.
But then again, sometimes if you're in this kind of situation, as I've heard people have been, and there's 5 or 6 guys in the team saying we're going to have a little bit of an unusual race here, and you're thinking, oh. And then you suddenly think, well, they aren't exactly putting on their trainers here. What they get to. So he wouldn't be the first gentleman ever to feel forced to join in. But it is a bit odd that he was, at his age, he was like the leader of the gang, so to speak.
32. He's not. We can't really use the daft boyness get out of jail card on this one.
And there is obviously, whether admitted or not, men do have this obsession with penal envy. So you're thinking, is he a Ron Jeremy type figure, or is he one of these real nutters that's had a couple of ribs surgically removed so he can get down there?
The Marilyn Manson.
Well, that's well, I hope I'm not the only person that's actually thought of this, but I'm sure from some of the comments online there are more than a few people have had that thought that he's actually taking it to extremes, and as he's getting older it's becoming more pronounced what he likes to do and this urge to perform in public, so to speak. Well,
at the end of the day, we're not here to kink shame. If it doesn't hurt any animals, children or vegetables, knock yourself out. And but don't let people film it, right? That's it. I laughed at
the we are looking for PMs if there are any links out there. We would like to share it with the rest of the world.
I did laugh at I love these words that the papers use for stories like, Graham Murty admits he would love to stay on at Ibrox as manager, and I'm like, what, did you have to beat that out of him? Of course he wants to. But the one that made me laugh on this one was he was caught performing a sex act. He wasn't caught. He had a room full of people there, all of them with their cameras out. I'm not caught.
There was a punter on Facebook and they came up with a one-liner that just nailed it, and I just thought, I've got to steal that. So somebody put up the story and the first response was, Toss County. It was a stroke of
genius. It's always the first reply. That's the established rule of follow. It's always the first reply. Mark, thank you very much for joining me today. Where can people see more of the magnificent octopus that is follow?
Well, we are manipulating people's brains, mostly from forum.followfollow.com.
Thank you very much for listening to the thoughts of an ex-van driver and someone who's on the professional scrap heap. Mark, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, David.
My name's David Edgar, and I'll be back to talk to you on Monday. Take care. Bye.